Sirens were blaring everywhere, cops, ambulances, the whole 9 yards. My parents and Ryan were freaking out, running around, shouting my name like their lives depended on it. The whole place was a total mess. But guess what? I was nowhere to be found. You're probably thinking, how did a girl like me, who's had everything handed to her, end up in this situation? Well, that's where things get interesting. I'm Sophie, and trust me, I'm not your average rich girl. If you want to find out how it all went down, stick around and hit that subscribe button for more crazy stories on Out of a Book. All right, let's rewind a few months back to when everything started. So here's the deal. I'm from a super rich family and everyone at school knew it. And because of that, most of the guys wouldn't even bother approaching me. They figured I was way out of their league. The only guys who did were from other rich families, but honestly, none of them did it for me. They were all just spoiled jerks. Then I met Ryan. Yeah, he was kind of like the rest of them, all stuck up and spoiled, but at least he was somewhat bearable. When I told my parents that he liked me, they were over the moon. I figured, why not? Maybe I'm expecting too much from guys anyway. I mean, those rom-com guys don't exist in real life, right? So I decided to give it a shot and see what happens. Long story short, I started dating Ryan, and like most couples, we began spending a lot of time together. But the more time I spent with him, the more I realized we had nothing in common. It was weird. He'd constantly try to get all touchy-feely, and it made me super uncomfortable. Every time I'd push him away or tell him to stop, he'd just brush it off like, "Come on, I'm your boyfriend, it's no big deal." But it was a big deal. He never got that he needed my consent. There were times when we'd be watching a movie and he'd start getting too close, like trying to slide his hand under my shirt or kiss me when I wasn't feeling it. I'd tell him to back off, but he'd act like I was overreacting. Or when we were out with friends, he'd sneak up behind me, wrap his arms around me in this super clingy way, and I'd feel trapped. He never bothered to ask if I was okay with it, and honestly, it just made me feel super gross. So I started trying to keep my distance from Ryan just to avoid those awkward situations. You know, sometimes I doubt myself, thinking maybe I was just overreacting. Like, people do this kind of stuff when they're in a relationship, right? So I figured maybe Ryan and I weren't supposed to be that different, but still, something about it kept bugging me, like deep down I knew something wasn't right. Just to distract myself and to avoid Ryan, I decided to join the cultural club. Honestly, I'm not that talented to be in it, but since my dad's a trustee of the school, I knew no one would really care if I joined. I mean, it was the first time I was actually using my so-called elite powers. But pretty soon, the cultural club admin, Mr. Rem, realized I wasn't exactly cut out for the club and that I needed some serious help if I wanted to actually contribute. So he paired me up with Jack, who's like the head honcho and jack of all trades in the club. Cultural club work apparently was serious business, and let me tell you, I was way out of my depth. I mean, I'd never done anything like this before, just schoolwork and the usual projects. So yeah, I was pretty much a walking disaster. Jack figured out pretty fast that I was totally clueless and honestly kind of a nutcase when it came to this stuff. But instead of ditching me, he decided to help out. And well, that's when the real fun started. Like, there was this one time when I was supposed to paint a backdrop for this big school event. I was trying to be all artsy, but I ended up knocking over the paint cans literally everywhere. I got paint all over myself, the floor, and of course, all over Jack. He just looked at me dripping in paint and said, "Sophie, I didn't know you were into abstract art." Then he started laughing so hard that he almost fell into the paint puddles. Then he teased me. "Or maybe you just wanted an excuse to get paint on me, huh?" I was so embarrassed, but he made it impossible not to laugh along. Another time, we were supposed to be organizing props for a play, and I somehow managed to knock over this massive stack of boxes. They came crashing down like an avalanche, and I just stood there in shock. Jack was grinning from ear to ear. "Soph, if you wanted to start a box fight, you could have just said so." He grabbed a cardboard sword from one of the scattered props and started play fighting with me. I was laughing so hard, I could barely swing back. Jack never got mad at me for messing things up. Instead, he'd make a joke out of it and somehow turn it into the best time ever. Even though I was constantly creating chaos, we always ended up having a blast together. Little by little, we started getting closer, and I actually started looking forward to the cultural club. Who knew making a mess could be so much fun? So days were passing like that, me making messes, Jack laughing it off, and us having a blast. But then one day, I made a huge mess. I'm talking epic disaster levels. I got super stressed and started freaking out, totally paranoid that I'd ruined everything. I was confused and blabbering on, and Jack kept trying to calm me down. Sophie, breathe. It's not that bad. But I was completely out of control. And then, out of nowhere, to shut me up is what he claimed, he looked deep into my eyes. You know, you're actually really cute when you're freaking out like this. Before I could even process what he said, he leaned in and kissed me. Oh my goodness. That kiss was unbelievable. I was on fire. It wasn't just a kiss. It was like everything clicked into place. I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. I knew I'm his and he's mine. It was something straight out of a rom-com. Like he was the one I've been waiting for all along. I was still trying to wrap my head around everything. The kiss, the whole crazy moment. When I turned and saw Ryan standing there watching us, my heart froze. Panic hit me like a ton of bricks. Ryan's face went from shock to straight-up rage in a millisecond. He stared me down, furious, and snapped. So, this is why you've been distant, always avoiding me when I try to get close, huh? Just wait and see. Watch what I do now. He was livid. He had a right to be, and I knew things were about to get messy. When I got home, Hurricane Ryan had hit. Ryan had told my parents everything. They were beyond furious, but not because of the relationship drama. They found out that Jack came from a really poor family, nowhere near our status. My parents were unglued. This is unacceptable! So I told them, look, I'm breaking up with Ryan. I can't imagine my life without Jack now, so please try to understand. But instead of understanding, my mom and dad lost it.
You've left us no choice. We're sending you to boarding school now!
I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. They were ready to ship me off just because I fell for someone outside their perfect little world? I couldn't take it anymore. I ran out of the house, grabbed my phone, and called Jack. I begged him to meet me. It's okay, Sophie. I'm here. Look, it's pretty late. Let's meet at the theater so we can talk privately. When I got there, I ran straight into his arms and hugged him so tightly, pouring out everything that had happened. We just stood there staring at each other, completely devastated, because deep down, we knew my parents were going to win in the end. No matter how hard they push me or try to send me away, I'm going to keep telling them that I can't live without you. Jack looked at me with surprise. I originally wasn't confident you'd stand up for us like that, but trust me when I say, even if you're across the country, I'll wait for you until my last breath. And that's when I broke down, sobbing all over him. He just held me, trying to hold the emotion that was clearly overwhelming him too. We clutched each other like our lives depended on it, and that's when we heard the loud creaking sound. Out of nowhere, Jack suddenly grabbed me and covered me with his warm body. Before I could even process what was happening, I realized the roof of the theater was coming down on us. The last thing I remember is Jack lying on top of me, protecting me, and then everything just went dark. While my parents and Ryan were frantically looking for me, they got a call from the local hospital. I had been admitted with severe injuries. All three rushed to the hospital. I don't know how long it was before I finally opened my eyes. When I did, I saw my parents in front of me, both sobbing with relief that I was awake. Before they could say anything to me, I laid down my boundaries. Mom, Dad, I know this will upset you, but I'm in love with Jack. He protected me from the collapsed roof, risking his own life. He's proven he's willing to work hard and be the man I need. And if you try to separate us by sending me away, I swear I'll never forgive you. My dad, still holding back tears, said, "It's okay. We're not going to send you anywhere. Just get well. Please be all right. You can date whomever you like, and if it's Jack, we won't protest." That's when the doctor walked in and asked me if I was okay. I told him I was fine, but then the other shoe dropped. I'm glad you made it through the toughest part because your friend Jack, he just passed away. His injuries were just too severe. Everything shattered in that one moment. It felt like my whole world had been ripped apart. I went completely numb after hearing those words. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness take over, whispering to myself, how do I live in a world without him?